This is your SmackDown review for October 21st, 2022. I am the Solomonster here, closing out the week with another SmackDown review. We had Logan Paul back on the show tonight. I'm sure you're all very excited that he was in his home, well, not his hometown, but his home state of Ohio. There was no Roman Reigns, but Logan Paul was there to do some talking. Thankfully, we had Sami Zayn and Jey Uso on the show to continue the storyline progression for the Bloodline, which is still the best thing going in the company right now. Although the Bray Wyatt stuff is very much very much out there. We had more Bray Wyatt stuff on the show tonight. We had a Bray Wyatt backstage promo. We had a couple of video cut-ins, including the debut of Uncle Howdy. We've heard the name Uncle Howdy over the last few weeks. WWE took out a trademark on the name. We didn't know what it was going to be used for. We don't know what form it was going to take. We see that mask. It's being called the Uncle Howdy mask. Or at least we thought that was the Uncle Howdy mask. Doesn't appear that's the Uncle Howdy mask. We saw something tonight that was a little creepier than that. We'll get into the Bray Wyatt stuff, and I have a few things to show you because we had another QR code. They're not done with the QR codes. So I was able to pull from the QR code and some other stuff. There was a phone number to call. I had nothing better to do as I sat here watching this show, so I called the phone number. So we'll go through all of that. We also had some good action tonight. In the opener, we had Sheamus and Solo Sikoa. We had a match later on in the show with Rey Mysterio and Ludwig Kaiser. And even the Women's Tag Team Championship match tonight was one of the better women's tag team title matches that we've seen recently. We've seen some that are not very good. Tonight was one of the better ones. It all made for what I thought was a solid, if unspectacular, show. I didn't think tonight's show was very exciting. You know, they moved certain stories along. I enjoyed the show better than Raw. I enjoyed SmackDown better than I did Raw this week, but this was not what I would call a very exciting show. We'll talk about SmackDown, and then I'm going to give my Halloween Havoc predictions. There is the big NXT show tomorrow night on Peacock, Halloween Havoc, so I will be reviewing that, not live. We'll do the review for Halloween Havoc on episode 779 on Sunday, but we'll do predictions a little bit later on. If you would like to support the channel, you can certainly do so. Hit that subscribe button. You can also drop a super chat. If you have a question, if you have a comment, we'll be hanging out a little bit later on. I'll be reading those. Also, you can support by liking this video. And if we get to 500 likes before we're done here today, we will do the Be the Booker segment a little bit later on. You guys know how it works here. We've got Be the Booker later. I also want to make mention of this. For those who may have missed it, my Halloween Ends review is up. I had some people asking if I was going to put one up. Of course I was. I did one for the first two. How could I not do one for the finale? Although I kind of wish I did. If you want my Halloween Ends review, it's not very long. Quick to the point, 10-minute review. It's up on the channel right now. I got a lot to say about this movie. Unfortunately, not as much in the way of good stuff as I had been hoping. But go ahead and watch that review. Leave a comment. Let me know if you agree or disagree. And yeah, so go ahead and do that. Channel members got it first. You guys got early access. Now it's up for everybody else. So that'll be something for you to go ahead and check out. And checking everybody in the chat here. Making sure everybody is with me here tonight. What is it? What is going on here? Oh, I was looking. I gotta stop paying attention to the chat. You guys are making me crazy. Jamaican me crazy. Shout out to Mike Adamley. All right, so anyway, we kicked things off tonight. We had Sheamus and Solo Sikoa. This is one of the matches that I mentioned a little bit earlier on. Some good action here at the top of the show. You can always rely on Sheamus here on this show to give you a good match. Sami Zayn was trying to crack Solo Sikoa on the bump this week. I don't know how many of you watch the bump. It is the WWE online show. They do it every Wednesday. And so the guests this week were Sami Zayn, Solo Sikoa, among others. Solo was in studio with Kayla Braxton and the other people who host the show, Matt Camp and I think Ryan is the other guy's name. So Solo is in studio. Solo is a man of few words. He's a very reserved man. He's not overly charismatic. He sits there. He's kind of stoic. He's the enforcer for the Bloodline. Sami Zayn joined via satellite from his home. He was, I don't know if he was Skyping in or whatever he was doing. We got Robot Sammy for a little bit there because he was using the fucking McDonald's Wi-Fi. But Sami connects to the show, and the first thing that he asks, the most important thing that Sami Zayn brings up on the bump, is whether or not Solo got the limousine. Did the limousine show up? Did you have bottled water in the back? Sami Zayn has made it his personal mission to try to crack every single member of the Bloodline on television, on whatever show they might be on. It is his personal mission. And Solo Sikoa, he was trying so hard. He was trying so hard not to laugh. He almost lost it at one point. He had to cover his mouth. It took every fiber of his being not to crack there on that show. I love the interactions between Sami Zayn and Solo Sikoa. So as the announcers were talking during Sheamus's entrance, he came out to the ring with the Brawling Brutes. We had a cut-in. We saw the mask. We saw we didn't see Bray Wyatt, but it was another Bray Wyatt video cut-in. The announcers didn't mention it. The announcers did not acknowledge it. So that would not be the last time we would see any sort of Bray Wyatt video on the show tonight. But he did say Bray was in the video. Bray made a very brief appearance in the video and said, "I'm here." I'm thinking of the later video. That was their way of letting you know that Bray was going to be on the show tonight, so you better not change to another channel. So anyway, in the match here, Sheamus threw an early clothesline. He was selling pain in his shoulder. This was the story of the match. Right from the get-go, Sheamus was selling that he might have had an arm injury. He set up for the 10 beats with Solo on the apron. Solo ended up wrenching the bad shoulder over the top rope. And Sheamus ended up on the floor. He was sitting up against the ring steps. Solo did a running hip check into him. Totally missed him. To the point where Michael Cole on commentary even had to make the comment that, he didn't get all of it. He didn't get any of it. But that took us into our first commercial break. Sheamus hit white noise for a near fall on the other side of it and was still selling the shoulder. He went up top. He got cut off by Solo Sikoa, who hit a Samoan drop off the middle rope. Hey, shout out to Rocky Road joining us in the chat. And all of our channel members. I see all of our green names here in the chat. You guys will keep me posted on Rampage. I know Jade Cargill was claiming that if Tony Khan did not give her what she wanted, if she didn't get back her TBS title that Nyla Rose stole from her, she was going to hold the show hostage tonight. That might be the most interesting thing to happen on Rampage in months. Now, you know why I don't cover Rampage on most weeks. When there's a big show, I'll cover it. Most weeks, Rampage is not a big show. I'm sure tonight is one of those nights. So he gets... he gets taken down from the middle rope with a Samoan drop, but he lands right on his shoulder. He didn't land on his back. So Michael Cole points out that Sheamus landed on the bad shoulder. Sheamus came back, though. He hit the 10 beats. Actually, I think it was a little more than 10 beats. Sheamus pointed to the crowd. He was getting ready for the brogue kick. Solo ducked it, hit Sheamus with a super kick. Sheamus came right back at him with a knee to the head. And Solo had him pinned. But there's the honorary Uce on the outside of the ring. Sami Zayn is out there. He distracts the referee. Meanwhile, Ridge Holland and Butch, they went after Sami. They end up getting taken out by the Usos, who overturned the announce desk on top of them. That was the last that we saw of Butch or Ridge Holland here in this match. But what they did not see when the Usos turned around is that Sheamus was perched up on the top rope and he dove out to the floor with a double clothesline, taking both Jimmy and Jay down. And that looked like it just had to be hell on his knees, landing from that height. Sheamus got back up on the apron. Sami, though, grabbed his foot. Sheamus kicked him away. As he went to get back in the ring, Solo kicked him. And then Solo gave him his Uranage slam and pinned him for the win. That's a big win for Solo Sikoa. After the match, Jey Uso tossed Sheamus out of the ring. Jimmy wrapped a chair around the bad arm of Sheamus. And so Jimmy and Sami were, or I think it was Solo and Sami were holding, or maybe actually, maybe it was Solo and Jimmy. Point is, They had Sheamus's arm in the chair. He was being restrained. This is over by the ring steps. Jey Uso grabbed the chair out of Sammy's hand. Sammy went to grab a chair. Jey said, give me that fucking thing. He grabbed the chair out of his hand, and he proceeded to assault Sheamus repeatedly. Hit him in the arm with the chair over and over and over again. Presumably to try to break the arm. Although later on, we did get an update later in the show from the hospital. Sheamus was taken to the hospital. And Michael Cole told us that what he suffered was a non-displaced fracture near his elbow. So that is the official diagnosis of the Sheamus storyline injury. So in just a few weeks, think about how long Solo Sikoa has been on the main roster, right? Not very long at all. In the span of just a few weeks, Solo Sikoa has become an instant player here on the SmackDown roster. It's actually the way that he's been integrated into the main roster this quickly has been really cool to see after the great year that he had in NXT. Solo Sikoa is one of the standout stars. People talk about Braun Breaker. They talk about Carmelo Hayes. There are some diamonds in the rough down there in NXT. But one of the names that you have to have on that list is Solo Sikoa. Solo Sikoa had himself a hell of a year in NXT, and he did it without the bloodline. He did it without his brothers. He had no association with the Usos at all. The fans at the PC knew that he was related to them, and they would chant Us and Uso at him, but he did that alone. He got over as a babyface all by himself and was having really good matches. So it's nice to see him transition to the main roster. He doesn't look out of place. He fits right into the bloodline perfectly. I mean, they've plugged him into the storyline. He fits like a glove. He feels like he's been there from day one. And as somebody who was a fan of his work in NXT, I just think that's really cool to see. But what we saw tonight, with this angle that they did here at the end of this match, what we saw tonight was the first shot being fired by the bloodline at the Brawling Brutes. They fired the first shot for the War Games match. So we have Crown Jewel coming up in a couple of weeks. 2 weeks from tomorrow. But the next big pay-per-view is Survivor Series. So we're just over a month away, about 5 weeks away from Survivor Series and the War Games matches. The War Games teams are going to have to begin to form. And I think that's what we got tonight. We got the first shot. I think you're going to have the Bloodline on one side. You're going to have the Brawling Brutes on the other. I don't think Sheamus is going to miss that much time. You'll have the Brawling Brutes, maybe Drew McIntyre, maybe Kevin Owens. And those are going to be your teams for the War Games match. I think that's what we saw tonight. Tonight was the first shot. We got a video package recapping Rey Mysterio switching over to SmackDown last week and then becoming #1 contender for the Intercontinental title. Cut back to earlier today in the back. Rey is coming into the building and he runs into 2 members of Imperium. He doesn't run into the most important member, but he runs into his henchman, Giovanni Vinci, Ludwig Kaiser. And they're mocking him. They're making fun of him for being alone. And Rey said that he didn't appreciate being disrespected. He challenged one of them, it didn't matter who, to a match tonight. Whoever has the cojones to step up and face Rey Mysterio. That would end up being Ludwig Kaiser. That came later on in the night. So then we went to the back for the Bray Wyatt promo. Bray Wyatt did not get to finish his thoughts on TV last week. We had that big cliffhanger at the end of the night. So this week was his chance to finish the promo that he started before he was so rudely interrupted. Hey, speaking of rude, Rudy Taker just subscribed to the channel. What's going on, Rudy? Welcome to the channel. Just checking here. I was gonna show something, but I thought I had it in here. I may have forgot to put it in. But anyway, so Bray Wyatt was in the back. They played his new theme music, the Code Orange music that he came out to on TV last week, which I've listened back to a few times. And each time I listen to it, I like it a little bit more. It's actually a pretty badass song. So they were playing it in the background as he spoke. And this here is what Bray Wyatt had to say. He was standing in the back. He was again in normal clothes. And this is what he said. He said, I apologize for last week. I didn't get to finish what I was saying, but that's okay. I will now. He says, I used to say that revenge is a confession of pain. And it is. I still believe that. I feel like confessing some things to you guys here today. He says, I confess that I have problems. Well, we fucking know that. He Says, I know I've always had problems, but there's a few of them like anger. Sometimes it can take me to places that I don't want to be. But for whatever reason, I get chances that most people don't get. Says, I was okay with being left alone. I was okay with being left alone and you people not chanting my name. But I'm glad that you did because I needed it. I needed all of you. He says, you pulled the spears from my body, pulled me up, showing me what I'm supposed to do, and I'm thankful for that. Because now I can see. I know who you are. I know what you are. I know what you're trying to do. But it won't work. And I assume at this point he's referring to the entity that we saw in the video last week with the mask on. So he's saying whatever you're trying to do, it won't work. He says, I confess that along this journey, I'm going to do horrible, horrible things. But I will never feel sorry for them. I am just a servant now. I go where the circle takes me. So it looks like they are indeed going the split personality route with Bray. It's pretty clear to me. There are a lot of things about this Bray Wyatt thing that are not very clear, but to me, the clearest thing is that they are going in some sort of split personality, multiple character direction with him. But what I thought was interesting about what he said, if you pay attention to the dialogue here, the path that they look to be taking with the character, listen to what he said during the promo here. He says, I just wanted to be left alone, right? He says, I got problems and anger is one of them, but I just wanted to be left alone. I went away. All right, he said last week he had a terrible year and he lost people that he loved and he was basically on the verge of despair and people kind of helped pick him back up to his feet. But he was perfectly fine being away from all of it. But you being us, you and me, brought him back, right? That's what he was talking about here in this promo. Says, I am a servant, but who is he a servant for? Is he a servant for us? Is he a servant for all of his individual personalities? Some people might take that literally and say that, oh, it's the sign of a Wyatt 6. Maybe he's talking about a new faction, and we're going to start to see people joining the faction. So it wasn't clear exactly who he's a servant for. He mentioned the circle, but what does that really mean? But the way that I read this is, you should have left me alone. You didn't. And now I'm going to do horrible, horrible things. And that's on you. That's on all of us. And that to me sounds like something that a heel would say. That sounds like someone who's going to go out and do something very terrible to one of the people that, fans like to cheer for. One of the baby faces on the roster. Now, which baby face that's going to be, I don't know. But that's kind of how I read this. I'm glad that you guys brought me back, but you brought me back. And so effectively now you're responsible for what I do and who I take this anger out on. So it's an interesting path for them to take. If I'm right, I think that's an interesting path for them to take with the character. We'll get back to the Bray Wyatt stuff because this was hardly the last that we heard from his wacky world here on this show. We cut back to the locker room. Different part of the locker room. The Bloodline is celebrating. Solo Sikoa is sitting down and he's, taking his boots off or his tape or whatever he's doing. And in the background behind him, Sami Zayn is celebrating. The Usos are celebrating. They just crippled Sheamus, right? What a great thing. We just crippled this fucking guy. So they're very happy. They're very excited. Cody, huh? Somebody said Cody. Maybe he's going to attack Cody Rhodes. Well, I don't know. Cody Rhodes is not going to be back for a while yet. So, I'm not too sure about that. It's possible, though. I don't think it's Braun. I was looking at the SmackDown roster. You see, and I know Rey is going to be having a match with Gunther soon. But, you see Drew, you see Rey. You don't really have a lot of options, to be honest with you. If he's going to be a heel or go after a babyface, you don't really have a lot of really great options on this show. You're looking at a Braun, you're looking at a Drew, you're looking at Rey. I don't think he would go after Sami, even though the people like Sami. Sami is going to be taken care of by the Bloodline in due time, maybe at War Games. But again, it's interesting to wonder who might it be that he's going to make his first target. So anyway, again, back to the Bloodline locker room. They're all celebrating, and Sami is just head over heels for Solo. He says Solo is truly the gem he's been a gem for the Bloodline. He said this was a message to the entire roster that nobody messes with the Bloodline. And Sami was like, our work is done tonight. We can leave. We don't have to be here anymore. And Jey Uso says, no, wait a minute. Logan Paul is going to be here later on tonight. We got to be here for when he shows up and kind of teach him a lesson. And Sami, says to him, look, Roman said he did not want us to engage with Logan Paul. Those are direct orders from the tribal chief. He does not want us to go after Logan Paul. He looked over at Jimmy. He goes, Jimmy, do you back me up on this? And all Jimmy would say is, my dog. That's what Solo said on the bump when Sami was asking him questions. Did the limo pick you up on time? We're good, my dog. Said, did it have the water that you like? Yes, it did, my dog. So that's the inside joke there. All they do is say my dog to Sami. So that's what Jimmy would say. And Jey said, look, at the end of the night, we'll see what happens. And he walked off. And Sami was very concerned, and he looked at Jey and said, what does he mean by that? Now, look, Roman put Sami in charge of Jey. He's like his personal babysitter. So obviously he's very concerned. What did he mean by that when he made that comment? We would find out soon what he meant by that. We had Liv Morgan one-on-one with Sonya Deville. Liv's lipstick was all smeared, and she had a ton of makeup on her face. And she's playing up the crazy gimmick. We saw that coming out of Extreme Rules when they found her in the back, and she was smiling at the end of the match, and she was laughing at herself. At different times during the match, when Sonya would have control, Liv would look at her, and Liv would smile. Morgan laughed as Sonya was slapping her during the match. Liv stood up and told her, hit me. So Sonya started slapping her some more, and Liv was smiling until she suddenly snapped. Now she wasn't smiling anymore. And they wound up on the floor. Liv slammed Sonya's head off the lid of the announce table, then ran her into the barricade. She started slamming Sonya's head off the ring steps repeatedly until both women got counted out. So that was a very shitty finish to this match. After the match, Morgan started pulling chairs out. She pulled chairs out from under the ring. She went over by the timekeeper's area. She pulled chairs out from over there. People chanted for tables. They didn't give a fuck about the chairs. They wanted the tables. There was no table. But she put all the chairs in the ring. She made a whole pile of chairs. And she took Sonya up. She was standing on the middle rope. She gave Sonya a superplex from the middle rope down onto the pile of chairs. Michael Cole pointed out that Liv also landed on the chairs, but she came up laughing while she was holding her back. I mentioned the makeup, all the makeup on her face. Liv had this eye makeup with like these little black streaks that were coming down from her eyes. She looked like Sting. Or maybe that's what she was going for. It was like the Sting eye makeup when she came out here. And she's out there and she's acting all crazy. And all I could think to myself is, Okada, once upon a time, when Okada lost the IWGP Championship, he lost his mind. And Okada went through this period where he would come to the ring with balloons. And those balloons, it was almost like he substituted the balloons for the championship that he no longer had. Okada went off the deep end there for a while. And I feel like, the Okada balloon thing, this is almost like the phase that Liv is in now. Okada lost the IWGP title. He had his balloons. Liv loses the SmackDown Women's Championship, and she goes off the deep end. And she's laughing, and she's smiling at herself, and now she's out there dressing like Doink the Clown. So I guess that's what she is now. She's fucking Doink the Clown here on this show. Put another pound of makeup on your face, she'll look like a clown who belongs in the circus. We got a hype video for the megastar, LA Knight. And I like the fact they spliced in footage from his NXT run as well. So he wasn't on the show tonight in a match, but we got a nice little video package for him. We got another vignette for the Viking Raiders, narrated by Sarah Logan. This time we got a little bit of a better view of their faces. We kind of saw Eric. We kind of saw Ivar. Briefly saw Sarah Logan. It was still very blurry and very fuzzy. And again, at the end of this, she said, Valhalla awaits. Same promo, basically, that we've seen now for weeks. But they're bringing them back as a trio very soon. Next up, we had a face-off. We had a face-off between Braun Strowman and Omos. Oh, I'm sure you've all waited all week long for this. I'm sure that you have been waiting on pins and needles to see these two men in the ring together tonight. Well, you're in luck because you got to see both of them. Braun Strowman came to the ring first. He said he's not easy to miss or hard to find. He said that he heard MVP was running his mouth on Raw. He told him to bring out Omos so that he could look into the eyes of a real monster. Music hits, out comes MVP. There's no Omos. There's no Omos, unless he got shrunk by the Rick Moranis machine where he shrunk his kids in that movie all those years ago. There was no Omos. We had MVP. MVP said that he was talking as he came to the ring. He said Strowman has always been the biggest person in the room until last week. Now he steps into the ring as he's speaking. And he took issue with Braun dubbing himself the monster of all monsters. He advised Braun to stay away from Omos or risk being exposed. If there's one thing that I do not care to see, it is Braun Strowman being exposed. So keep that to yourself. Strowman said that he didn't need MVP's advice, and he challenged Omos to a match at Crown Jewel. So there it is. I mean, you had to know that's where this was headed. He made the challenge. MVP accepted the challenge on behalf of Omos. So the match is now official for Crown Jewel. Strowman said, you know what, though? We could stand out here. We could talk all day. That's not what I'm here for. He said, I'm not here to talk. I'm better. Everybody knows I'm better at action than I am here talking on the microphone. And he teased going after MVP since Omos wasn't there. But MVP said, well, wait a minute. I never said Omos wasn't here. And they played the music, and here comes Omos. And he walks out there, and he's dressed up in a suit, looking like the biggest fucking banker off Wall Street that you've ever seen. And they're shooting him from underneath, as they always do. And Omos comes walking. He comes, marching down to the ring. And he gets inside. And he and Braun come face to chest. This was quite the visual here. Braun Strowman is a very large man. It is not very often that he looks as if he is being dwarfed by the person that he is in the ring with. But he had to look up at Omos. And clearly Omos, he had lifts in his boots. I refuse to believe that he did not have lifts in his boots. Even guys who were legitimately humongous, WWE in the past has put lifts in their boots. Kane had lifts in his boots to make him more in line with The Undertaker when he debuted. So I know Omos is a giant man. I know that he's 7'2" or whatever he is, but this fucking guy had lifts in his boots because there's no way he's that much bigger than Braun when you put them side by side. I refuse to believe that. Visually, it looked ridiculous. So Omos gave Strowman a shove through the ropes out of the ring. Braun landed on his ass. He got up on his knees. He looked in the ring and he smiled. He looked like he was impressed. He said, okay, all right. Now we're talking here. And that was the segment. Omos and MVP left after that. And I thought that this was a perfectly fine way to hype up the Battle of the Big Men. There's only one problem that I see. They're going to go to Saudi Arabia. They're going to go to Crown Jewel. And then the bell is going to ring. And I don't know what to expect. They're going to have to construct the match in a way where it doesn't go too long. I mean, they could work big man spots. And I think it'll get over with the crowd. But a lot of it's going to come down to, what do they have Omos doing? Braun can work. Braun gets a lot of hate for his... I mean, you can hate Braun for saying stupid shit on social media and all that, and that's well-deserved. But in the ring, and you look at his last WWE run, he's not bad in the ring. Like, when he's out there and he's working the big man spots and he's smashing people, Braun Strowman is fine. Yeah, the feud, the program with Roman Reigns, he's had good matches. I have yet to see a single good match from Omos, and that's my issue. I've seen good matches with Braun Strowman. I have not seen the same from Omos. I don't think Braun Strowman is going to be the one to get it out of him either. That's my fear. But they could try to put this together in a way where they're not out there for too long, they don't get exposed, and they work a very simple, kind of big man match where they do a bunch of power spots, and I don't know if Braun is going to powerbomb him. I don't know if Braun can get him up for the powerbomb or not. But this is going to be very interesting to see. I'll leave it at that. I've always said that the problem is when the bell rings. That's my fear when it comes to this. We got a recap of the brawl between Drew McIntyre and Karrion Kross from last week. No Karrion Kross on the show tonight, but we did get Drew. He was in the back with Kayla Braxton, and he said that upper management is not very happy with him. He says Kross pushed him past his breaking point at Extreme Rules, and he was called to task by WWE management. The long and short of it is that if he and Kross start throwing fists at each other, there will be severe consequences. But all parties agree that this has to come to an end. And so at Crown Jewel, it is now official that at Crown Jewel, it will be Drew McIntyre one-on-one with Karrion Kross. This time it is going to be inside of a steel cage. There you go. What did I say? What did I say? I called it at the very end of Extreme Rules when their match was over. Scarlett repeatedly has gotten involved. Scarlett threw a fireball or tried to in Drew's face one week. At the pay-per-view, she fucking maced the guy. The only way to try to keep this woman out is to put these two in a cage. And there it is. Now we have the stipulation for Saudi Arabia. It will be Drew McIntyre and Karrion Kross inside of a steel cage. I hope they're not pulling a TNA on us and starting with all the stipulation matches and working backwards to a straight singles match. That would be very TNA-esque of them. The cage match should be the blow-off to this feud. Especially if Drew is going to get worked into the War Games match. Again, if it is the Brawling Brutes and maybe McIntyre and KO, they have to begin to set that up. I don't think that this Drew Karrion Kross thing is going to bleed over into Survivor Series, or I don't think it should bleed over into Survivor Series. You're going to do a cage match coming off a strap match. That should be the payoff. Otherwise, what are you building to? Where do you go? You did a strap match. You're going to do a cage match. What's next? Is it going to be the electric chair thing that WCW did at Halloween Havoc many years ago with Abdullah the Butcher sitting in the chair getting electrocuted? I mean, where do you go from here? Buried alive? We saw Limo arriving in the back. Out comes Logan Paul. Even though they were in his home state of Ohio, the crowd was so happy to see him when he got out of the limo that you could hear audible boos from the crowd. We had Damage Control, Dakota Kai, and Io Sky defending their WWE Women's Tag Team Championship match, or Tag Team Championships here in this match, I should say, against Raquel Rodriguez and Shotzi Blackheart. Shotzi is going to be the co-host, by the way, for a Halloween Havoc tomorrow night. It's going to be Shotzi Blackheart and Quincy, is it Quincy Jones? Quincy Jones? Is it Quincy Jones? What's that guy's name? Quincy something. Is it Jones, or am I thinking of the actual Quincy Jones? I met Quincy Jones once. I think I've told that story. Legend. The man himself, Quincy Jones. I met him at a poker tournament that he was hosting. So anyway, we come back from a break here in the middle of this match. Shotzi fights back, tosses Dakota Kai out to the floor. Raquel gets the hot tag. She starts to run wild. After a fallaway slam, she went for the Vader bomb. Sky cut her off. Dakota tried to powerbomb Raquel, but Shotzi made the save. Io caught Raquel with a great-looking tornado DDT for a near fall. Oh, Quincy Elliott. Okay. I knew I probably screwed that up. Quincy Jones is not hosting Halloween. Quincy Jones has far more important things to do tomorrow night, I'm sure, than hosting Halloween Havoc at the fucking Performance Center. Quincy Elliott, thank you. Thank you very much. I knew somebody would correct me. Oh, boy. So the babyfaces got an assisted sliced bread for 2. Raquel tried to give Dakota a power bomb, but they fell out of the ring. Meanwhile, in the ring, Io hit the top rope moonsault on Shotzi for the win. As I said at the top, this was better than most of the women's tag team matches that we have seen recently. Damage Control has been a part of some real clunkers. And not just them. We've seen some women's tag matches that just frankly aren't very good. This one was probably the best one I've seen in a while. Raquel has not had much luck with her recent tag team partners. It might be time for her to think about abandoning her tag team partners and go it alone for a while. I think she'd have better success that way. Backstage, Kayla Braxton was interviewing the SmackDown Women's Champion, Rowdy Ronda Rousey. Braxton asked Ronda if she was here to issue an open challenge, which is what Ronda was doing the last time we saw her as the champion. And she said the fans were expecting it, based on what she did during her last reign. Ronda said that she issues open challenges to prove that she's the best, not to entertain the fans. She says that she owes the fans nothing. She says she gave them everything that she had and got nothing but hate for it. Rousey said the fans don't want the best to win. They want their favorites to win. And she went to go leave, and Kayla stopped her and said, yes, but would there be an open challenge? Ronda said there would be an open challenge next week when she feels like it, and she's able to get the hell out of Ohio. So, in case you were wondering, is Ronda Rousey a heel or not? The answer is yes. Ronda Rousey is a heel, and that is exactly the right role for her to be in. She should have been a heel months ago. Better late than never. Then we got back to the Bray Wyatt stuff. I said we were not done with Bray. We were not done with Bray. We're not done with QR codes and all the clues. This was weird here. As the show was going on, we were interrupted by another video. I'm calling this the Uncle Howdy video. And we saw, and again, they had all this random kind of disturbing footage. It would quickly cut from one scene to another. And it was a bunch of people, just, they looked like, it looked like people coming out of nuclear war or something, like, I don't know what the significance of that is. I guess it's supposed to look like hell on earth, maybe. And we see some shadowy figures and stuff. But then we cut to a shot, it's in a darkened room somewhere. It looks like a crown of thorns is what it looked like. Or, barbed wire or whatever. But then the camera pans down and we see this. This is what we see. If I queued it up here for you, let me see if I have it. Do I have it here? Here we go. This is what we saw. In case you can't make that out, that is a person's face. You see the mustache there. Guy's wearing a hat. Maybe it wasn't a crown of thorns. At first I thought it was like a crown of thorns where there was barbed wire around it. It's a hat. And it's a figure who we can't see. Now, that clearly is a prosthetic. We see the cheek there. It's a mask of some kind that this person is wearing. We have no idea who this person is. Anybody who is venturing a guess as to who this person is does not know what they're talking about. Nobody knows who this is. Everyone I've seen, Bo Dallas. It's Bo Dallas. Or, it's going to be a member of the Wyatt Six. Nobody fucking knows who this person is. Okay? Who knows? Maybe it's a puppet. That looks like a mask that someone is wearing. Maybe it's a puppet. We don't know, but it's creepy looking. Yes, Shang Tsung. It does look a little bit like Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat. But I guess this is Uncle Howdy. And we hear a voice in the background saying, you should never lie to the ones you love. And they repeat that line over and over again. You should never lie to the ones you love. Now, in all of the footage that they were flashing, they also flashed a QR code. Like I said, we're not done with the QR codes here on this show. So they flashed a QR code, and I did it with my phone. Back to me. There we go. This is what comes up when you go to the QR code. You get a medical form. This is Bray Wyatt's psychological/psychiatric evaluation. You see his name up on top, his birthday, May 23rd, 1987. And there you see the client ID number up there in the upper right-hand corner. Obviously, some of this is redacted, but you look at some of the text here. He refused to sign the document. It says, I'm trying to lean in to read this here. Psychological history. I should have written this down. Psychological history, difficulty showing remorse or empathy. Conflict with social norms. I know a few people like that. A little bit lower down says disregarding or violating the rights of others. is another issue that young Bray has. And again, the rest of the information here we can't see because it's redacted. Speaking of redacted, there's CM Punk in the super chat there on your screen. CM Punk is about to be redacted from AEW. We'll talk about that on Sunday. But anyway, there you go. That is Bray Wyatt's mental health record. It looks like Bray Wyatt, much like his old friend Alexa Bliss, may have had some therapy sessions. We don't know when. There's no date on this other than his birthday. But very interesting. Now, I mentioned that I called the number that you see up there in the upper right-hand corner where it says client ID. Apparently, that's a phone number, or so I heard. So I decided to call the number and see what it said. When you call the number, it takes you to a recording of someone reciting part of the lyrics to a David Bowie song. It's actually a David Bowie song that Nirvana did a cover of many years ago. A song called The Man Who Sold the World. And you hear the lyric, "Oh no, not me, I never lost control. Oh no, not me, we never lost control." And then the recording ends and the call just cuts out. Now, what do I make of all this? What is to be made of Uncle Howdy and the psychological... Well, the psychological profile is easy enough. This guy's fucked in the head, so we knew that already, right? But what do I make of that? What do I make of the phone call and everything else? The man has issues. That's what I make of it. I don't know what else to say about this. I don't know where this is going. I don't know what the significance of the lyrics are. Beyond the fact that this guy is fucked up here, I have no idea what to make of this. And I have no idea where they're going with this. And I'll tell you something, I like it better that way. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with waiting a week and finding out what the next chapter is going to be in this Bray story and then coming on here and talking about it. My guess is they're going to keep a lot of this very close to the vest. Apparently, there are a lot of different people, not just Bray, collaborating on this. Different writers and people have input into this storyline. So we really don't have any clue what direction this is going to take. And that, I think, is what is so appealing about this. And I think in terms of WWE, they give us a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more each week. And hopefully, in their mind, that'll keep people tuning in to see what's going to happen next. But at some point in these next few weeks, he's going to have to pick a target. He's going to have to start a program with someone. Right? That has to be the direction that they're going in here. I think it'll be a babyface. But beyond that, I have no idea. To try to get in the man's head sounds like a very scary place. The Uncle Howdy thing looks very creepy. But there was also an Uncle Harper. So that's maybe next week. We'll find out there's another person under a mask or a puppet or something. Uncle Harper was the other name they trademarked. We got Uncle Howdy here. Now we wait for Uncle Harper. There you go. There's your Bray Wyatt update for this week. That's all I got for you. I can't even venture a guess. Beyond the obvious with the different personalities, I won't even venture a guess as to where this is going to go next. We got a Legado del Fantasma segment in the back. Santos Escobar sat on a couch. He had a drink in his hand, and he talked about growing the family business into an empire. He talked about prospering through mergers and acquisitions, and their latest acquisitions, Zelina Vega, is beautiful, ruthless, and powerful. Zelina was sitting next to him, and Zelina said that she has been successful with everything she's ever done. She said that they have no peers because they are head and shoulders above everybody else. They all stood up from the couch, and the camera pulled back. We saw Joaquin Wilde and Cruz del Toro standing on either side of them, and they all toasted to their legacy. They said their legacy begins by destroying Hit Row. So we cut back to a different part of the arena, and Hit Row was watching this promo on a giant screen. And Top Dollar was saying something, and I try not to pay attention to what Top Dollar is saying. But B-Fab spoke. We heard from B-Fab. And B-Fab said that she had an idea. She had an idea about how to handle the whole Legado del Fantasma thing. And she said, come with me. And they walked off. We didn't see them again. Although we did get an announcement later on about a match for next week. Rey Mysterio one-on-one against Ludwig Kaiser of Imperium. Rey said, and this is one of the reasons why I love Rey coming to SmackDown. Here's a match we've never seen before. And it was pretty good, too. For the time it lasted, it was a pretty good match. But I like the fact that we're going to get Rey in the ring now with people that we have never seen him work with before. Even if it's just temporary, it's only for a couple of months, 3 months, 4 months, before ultimately he ends up back with the Judgment Day and back with his son in a program, and he'll wrestle Dominic at WrestleMania. We all know that's where it's going. For now, we get to see him working with people like this. So Rey sent Kaiser to the floor. He dove from the apron. Kaiser, though, moved, and Rey crashed into the barricade. Gunther was out there, and he was standing around, and he was kind of cheerleading on. At one point, Rey picked up a chair. He tossed it in Gunther's direction, and Gunther just swatted it away. But Rey fell to the ground. He pulled an Eddie. I feel like we've seen this so many times now, but he pulled the old Eddie Guerrero trick. The referee, of course, thought that he hit him with a chair, and he pointed at him, and he pointed at Giovanni Vinci, and he ejected both of them from ringside. So now the Imperium members were gone. Rey went for a top rope splash. Kaiser got his knees up, though, and a 2 count out of it. Rey performed a Hurricane Rana. He got Kaiser in the ropes, and you know what came next. Rey hit the 619. He dropped the dime. He got the pin. And Rey Mysterio, who of course had to win because he's the #1 contender for the Intercontinental title, picks up a win on SmackDown. We don't know when he is going to be challenging for the championship. They have not announced that yet. But I thought this was good. This was good stuff, and it was a fine little crowd-pleasing match here on SmackDown. Then we got to the main event. Logan Paul. We didn't get a match in the main event. We got Logan Paul in the main event, which I know is not exactly a great main event. But he closed out the show. He said, "It feels great to be back in Ohio." Got the cheap pop out of it. He doesn't need anybody in his corner, he said, like Paul Heyman or Sami Zayn or someone like Solo Sikoa, who, funny enough, calls himself Solo. Every time he's seen him, he's with other people. Said nobody expects a kid from social media to step into the ring with the GOAT and win. I didn't know that he had a match at Crown Jewel with Bret Hart, apparently. But he said, what happens if he does? What happens if he goes in there and actually wins? God help us all. Says, what happens if he busts up Roman's teeth and turns his little tribe into a cleanup crew? At this point, Jey Uso jumped him from behind. He must have come out of the crowd. He jumped him from behind. He was by himself. Remember, Jay's the hothead here. So he lays him out. He mounts Logan. He starts laying in strikes. Hits a super kick. He drops Logan in the corner with the kick. He backs up into the corner. He hits the running corner hip splash. Sami Zayn now shows up. Sami Zayn jumps up on the apron. He's trying to get Jey under control. He's trying to tell him, what are you doing? Roman said he does not want you out here. Roman said he does not want you to put your hands on him. Let's go. Come with me. We're going to go. And Jey looks like he's about to leave with him, but he changes his mind. He turns back around. He goes for another corner hip splash, but Logan moves out of the way. And when Jey comes out of the corner and turns around, Logan clobbers him with a right hand. He drops him with one hand, knocks him cold. And that's how they ended the show. That's how they went off the air. The story here is that all it takes is one punch. Logan Paul has a fighting chance. All it takes is one right hand, and he could potentially put Roman Reigns down and become the new champion. Now, that's not the only story here. Of course, the other story is that Roman put Sami in charge of Jey and said, I don't want you fucking with Logan Paul. So what does Jey Uso do? He comes out and he beats up Logan Paul. And then he gets dropped and embarrassed in the middle of the ring. And so now Roman Reigns is going to be back on SmackDown next week. And Roman Reigns is not going to be very happy. And poor Sami Zayn now is going to be on the hot seat. So that was the story as we closed out the festivities tonight here on SmackDown. They're doing what they can to try to convince you that Logan Paul has a chance to actually win the championship. He doesn't. But it's their job. They made the match. It's their job to try to convince you that he does. And I said Roman is going to be back on SmackDown next week. SmackDown, because of baseball, is not on Fox. Next Friday, SmackDown's on FS1. And I wonder if they're actually taping 2 episodes that night because they're going to be traveling to Saudi Arabia the following weekend. So my guess is they're going to tape 2 shows next week. But it's on FS1 live next Friday. Roman is back. Ronda Rousey will have her open challenge. Sami Zayn and Solo Sikoa are going to take on Butch and Ridge Holland of the Brawling Brutes. And Hit Row, this is B-Fab's plan. Hit Row will have a mystery partner to take on all three members of Legado del Fantasma. So let the guessing begin as far as who the mystery partner is going to be. I probably, like a lot of you, the first name that popped into my head, Carmelo Hayes, who is ripe for a main roster call-up any day now. He's in the North American Championship ladder match tomorrow night at Halloween Havoc. I'm going to do my predictions here in a moment, but I don't think he's going to win. So if he doesn't win back the North American title, then he's not bound to NXT. If they want to call him up, they can call him up. I would be a little disappointed just because, not that he's not ready for the main roster, but I was kind of thinking and hoping that the direction they would end up going in is a program with him and Braun Breaker for the NXT Championship. Maybe he would get a run with the NXT title before he gets called up. Braun maybe drops it to Mello. Maybe Braun gets called up first if that's what they want. If they want to call somebody up, and maybe Carmelo gets a run with the NXT title. But if they want to call him up to Raw or SmackDown, I won't argue it because he's fucking great. And I actually like him as a combo with Trick Williams. I think they complement each other very well. So I'm kind of torn on this. If I'm right, and a lot of people are right, and it ends up being Carmelo Hayes, Hit Row is a dead act on the main roster. I just got done talking about them last week. Without Swerve Strickland, I think he's the missing ingredient. Hit Row is fucking death row so far on the main roster since they've come back. Nobody cares. So is it a 1 week thing where you have Carmelo Hayes just in the one match? Do they make him a part of Hit Row? Because that would be fucking stupid. I don't think it would help Carmelo Hayes. It would, if anything, it would hinder him. I think Carmelo Hayes on his own or with Trick is the way to go. I would keep him as far away from Hit Row as possible. He don't need Hit Row. Hit Row needs him, but he don't need them. So I'm torn on that. But he was my first guess. Carmelo Hayes was my first guess. Or my first guess. My guest at this time. No, he was my first guess as far as who the mystery person is going to be. Otherwise, I don't know. My guess it's someone from NXT. I mean, is there anybody who's on the SmackDown roster right now who's been out with an injury who potentially could come back and be their partner? I don't know. So I mentioned Halloween Havoc is tomorrow night. This is the first time that Halloween Havoc is a standalone pay-per-view, PLE, call it whatever you want. Usually it's just a themed episode of NXT on a Tuesday. Now it's a Saturday show. Shawn Michaels did a conference call earlier today and said that he wants to make Halloween Havoc a show where when people think of Halloween Havoc, they don't think of WCW. They think of NXT. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. Although it does make me sad, there are a lot of very young people who watch that show who probably have no idea that Halloween Havoc was a WCW show. That makes me very sad. But, you know what? I hadn't thought about that. J-Rod and Zohawk actually had a really good answer. He's not part of the SmackDown roster, but I think you may be onto something there. They said, what about Angelo Dawkins? I hadn't thought about him because he is on Raw. But Montez Ford is out with an injury. I don't know for how long. He had that walking boot on a couple of weeks ago. And so if he's still out, and we've seen interaction on SmackDown with the Street Profits and Hit Row. Actually, Angelo Dawkins would make a lot of sense. You could be right. I would say that if it's going to be somebody who's already on the main roster, then it absolutely would be Angelo Dawkins. Tonight's guest on Solomonster is Carmelo Hayes. He's got an open invitation anytime he wants to come on. We'll have him on the show. I don't think WWE would approve that, but he's more than welcome anytime he wants to come co-host with me. So let's get into these Halloween Havoc predictions for tomorrow. I'm not going to be live after that show. I'll cover it on the podcast on Sunday. We have the Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal match. Apollo Crews one-on-one with Grayson Waller. I have a vision. Apollo Crews, right? He's the man who could see into the future. He has these visions. I have a vision. I see Apollo Crews winning the match. We have a Weapons Wild match with Roxanne Perez taking on Cora Jade. I'm going with Roxanne Perez as my pick. We have an ambulance match. Haven't seen an ambulance match in a while. It is funny, isn't it? When Sean said that, I had a nice little laugh. That's his goal, though. Hey, look, you know what? In life, it's nice to have goals. If his goal is to make it so that people associate NXT and not WCW with Halloween Havoc, I wish him well. As somebody who is now leading NXT, that should be his goal. That should be his goal. I don't know that he'll be successful, but that should be his goal. Julius Creed and Damon Kemp. The current and former member of Diamond Mine, they're going to have an ambulance match. I'm going with Damon Kemp. The upside in him is as a single. Julius is still part of a tag team. I know he's going for revenge, and you want the babyface to get revenge. I think Damon Kemp gets the win. We have the ladder match for the North American Championship, which was vacated when Shawn Michaels took the title away from Solo Sikoa when he went up to SmackDown. Carmelo Hayes, Oro Mensah, Wes Lee, Von Wagner, oh, my favorite, and Nathan Frazer. Now, Frazer is not his real name. Is there any reason why he is called Frazer and not Frazer? Because I always mess that up. Why not just call him Frazer? Nathan Frazer. Why Nathan Frazer? Does anybody know? Anyway, it's a ladder match. I don't think Carmelo Hayes is getting the belt back. He's beyond that. Carmelo Hayes has had 2 runs with the NXT North American Championship. He does not need a third. Either have him challenging for the NXT Championship coming out of the show or get him on up to the main roster. My pick in this match is Wes Lee. Wes Lee got a raw deal when Nash Carter got fired. And I thought for sure this guy's dead. I mean, he's going to be dead in the water, right? He's going to get lost in the shuffle. And they have built a story around Wes Lee as the underdog. And he's kind of got like a Napoleon complex, and he doesn't like it when people talk about how small he is or they doubt him. And he's really grown into the babyface underdog role on the show, and he's fucking awesome in the ring. What a great payoff it would be to his story for him to stand on top of that ladder and win the North American Championship. I'm picking Wes Lee. He's my pick to win that match. We have Mandy Rose defending the NXT Women's Championship against Alba Fire. Old Kaylee Ray. I'm still not used to this whole Alba Fire thing, but that's her name now. I don't think the end of Mandy Rose's reign is coming tomorrow. I think she's going to retain her championship, so I'm picking Mandy to win. Now, the one caveat there is if they're going to be calling up Toxic Attraction to the main roster. I don't know when they plan on doing that. If their call-up is imminent, then they would do a title change here. I'm going to say no. I think Mandy holds on to it. And then we have the main event, triple threat match for the NXT Championship. Braun Breaker defending against JD McDonough and Ilya Dragunov. So I am being reminded here by Hyru that the ambulance match has a stipulation attached to it where if Julius loses, then Brutus, his brother, his tag team partner, is gone from NXT. So in that case, I'm going to go with Julius Creed. I forgot about that stipulation, and that's what I hate about stipulations like that, too. It's just, there's no need for it. You know what I mean? Like, there's no need to add a stipulation like that to the match and just make it so patently obvious who's going to win. I hate when they do that. So I'm making a change. But here, Braun Breaker, JD McDonough, and Ilya Dragunov, I'm picking Braun Breaker. I don't think he loses the championship here. It would be an easy way for them to take the title off of him without having to beat him for it in, under triple threat rules. But I think the 2 top champions retain. I think Mandy holds on to her belt, and I think Braun holds on to his. And that is the card for Halloween Havoc tomorrow night. Halloween Havoc should be a main roster show. Shawn Michaels can try to make it into an NXT show all he wants to. On the podcast on Sunday, I'm going to have some news about King of the Ring possibly returning and some other changes WWE is making to its pay-per-view schedule in 2023. I'm going to tell you what I think they should be doing. I'm going to map out what my pay-per-view schedule would look like. And Halloween Havoc is one of those events I'd like to see make its way, kind of like War Games, right? They took that from NXT. NXT took it from WCW. The main roster took it from NXT. I'd like to see them do the same with Halloween Havoc. Sorry, Sean. Sean can go find some other event. He can pick another. he can have fucking Spring Stampede and make that an NXT show, right? Maybe Road Wild, and everybody in the Performance Center can ride some little Fisher-Price motorcycle out there, pretend they're in Sturgis, and he can have his own version of Road Wild. Halloween Havoc should be a main roster show. Should have been a main roster show 15 fucking years ago. Not in a fucking warehouse down in Orlando. Here's a Twitter poll. 66.7% thumbs up for SmackDown tonight. 20.8% thumbs in the middle. And 12.5% of you have voted thumbs down on tonight's SmackDown show. Go vote at Solomonster. Every vote counts. We got an election coming up in a few weeks. You know what's more important than voting in the election? Voting in my Twitter polls. That's more important. You don't even have to mail in your ballot. All you have to do is go to @Solomonster and click the little button and send me a tweet and say hello. There you go. All right. Let's move over to your super chats here and see what you guys have to say for me. I want to hear from you. So send them on in. There we go. We got Super Hot Vector Man. $5 super chat. Do you have any Halloween Havoc prediction? Well, how about that? In fact, I do. This is also, have you seen the new Hellraiser movie? I hope the show tonight is good. I have not seen the new Hellraiser movie. I saw Halloween. I have not seen Hellraiser. I have not yet seen Terrifier 2. Although I have heard that there are people passing out and vomiting while they watch it. If the kill scenes in Terrifier 2 are worse than I'll say the kill scene in the first Terrifier movie, and if you saw it, you know which one I'm talking about, then that's, I can understand why people would be passing out and vomiting in the movie theater. So, I have not seen it yet, although I heard Chris Jericho has a cameo. I believe Chris Jericho has a part in Terrifier 2. Chris Jericho had a part in Albino Farm. That's another, you want to see a low-budget horror movie from many years ago? Go check out Albino Farm. Chris Jericho's in that one too. Off leather wings, of all the holds that Bret Hart knew, his favorite to hold is a grudge. I think that's his finishing move. Shinakuma, thank you for the $2. Google Chrome user under quarantine says, I was wrong. Roman should go over Logan. I hope you come out of quarantine very soon. Angel Silva with the $4.99. Hey, Angel, thank you. Thoughts on the bro kick? I legit think it's a top 10 for me. It's brutal. Looks, and anyone can take it. The way Sheamus does it is so awesome. Yeah, Sheamus's delivery of the hold is great. It's not top 10, but it's, in terms of how it's protected by the company, it's top 3. It's up there with the End of Days. I mean, we've seen Roman Reigns give people spears and people kick out of that shit all the time. They don't protect Roman Reigns' moves the way they protect the bro kick in the End of Days. But Sheamus's delivery of the move, it looks great. That's what a finisher should look like. That's why it's called a finisher. Joseph Brooks with the $4.99. Cherish, keep, borrow, sell. On which young star has the brightest future and is going to be a megastar? MJF, Austin Theory, Braun Breaker, and Carmelo Hayes. Well, we have to cherish MJF. He is a national treasure. He must be cherished at all costs. So I would say cherish on MJF. I am going to keep Braun. You know what? I'm going to keep Carmelo Hayes. I'm going to borrow Braun Breaker, and I'm going to sell Austin Theory. Brumakian Productions, what do you think of the true story of WrestleMania and the Monday Night War documentaries? I think if you want WWE's version of events, then you should go watch those documentaries. And I enjoyed the Monday Night War one, but you go into it understanding that it's coming from the perspective of the winner. And when you're done watching it, it's very clear that it's coming from their perspective. Black Wolf with the $5 super chat. Although I know he would lose, I want Sheamus to face Roman at the Royal Rumble. I honestly think he deserves a title shot since his last run was 2015. I don't think that you want to... Well, you know what? There's no harm in doing the match. He's not going to win. Because the real story is him going back after the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania. I'm just not sure you want him involved with the top title, and then people look at it maybe as a downgrade when he's only wrestling for the Intercontinental after that. You could certainly do it as a main event at the Royal Rumble. You know, he's over enough. Right now, look, after tonight, it looks like the Bloodline and the Brawling Brutes are going to be feuding. So it's possible. But I might avoid doing that, just because I don't want people feeling like, oh, it's a step down now. He's only going back after the IC title because he couldn't beat Roman and he couldn't beat the top, he couldn't win the top title. Rock Intensity with the $20 super chat. Hey, Rock Intensity, thank you. He shoots to the top of the list here tonight. Says, oh no, not me. We never lost control. You're face to face with the man who sold the world. That is the David Bowie song. I don't know that I ever heard the Nirvana cover of that song, now that I think about it. I think the greatest cover that I've ever heard to a song was Hurt by Johnny Cash. When he covered that Nine Inch Nails song. You talk about music and songs and how it can evoke emotion, how it makes you feel. That song makes you feel. It makes you feel sad and depressed. And part of it also is I will always associate that song now with Eddie Guerrero's death because they used it in the video package after he passed away. It's a very sad song, but it's such a powerful song. And I'll never forget the quote from Trent Reznor when he was interviewed. And they said, how did you feel when you heard that cover for the first time, that Johnny Cash covers your song? And he said he was blown away by it. And I think he told Johnny Cash, he said, that song is yours now. Like, it's not mine anymore. It belongs to you. Miles Marable with the $4.99. Buy or sell. In their prime, HBK against Eddie Guerrero or Bret Hart against Kurt Angle? Bret Hart against Kurt Angle. I feel like I've answered that question like so many times before. And my answer never changes. Bret Hart against Kurt Angle. Josiah Ball. Hey, Josiah, what's going on? I hope you're having a good Friday night. If AEW buys out CM Punk's contract, do you think he'll go back to WWE? And do you think it will be good for them? I will talk about CM Punk on the podcast on Sunday. The fact that we are even talking about a non-compete clause tells you that, of course, there is a chance he could go back to WWE. Would WWE want him? That's a whole other story. That's a whole other ball of wax. But we're going to get into the CM Punk stuff in more detail on the podcast on Sunday. Bernard Frederick with the $10 super chat. Says, we haven't seen R-Truth since Triple H took over, but just imagine R-Truth going to Paul Heyman for an application to join the Bloodline. Later on, coming with a t-shirt that says R-Us. Hilarious. R-Truth has not been on Raw or SmackDown, but R-Truth has been around. In fact, there was a segment, a serious segment, not even for comedy, with R-Truth, R-Truth and Shelton Benjamin. I don't know if it aired on Main Event or if it was on social media. They're in the locker room, and it's Shelton basically saying, he's tired of being in the background. Once upon a time, people called him the gold standard Shelton Benjamin. Now they just call him Shelton. And it was almost like they were doing a reboot for Shelton Benjamin, but it was a totally serious promo. He was just talking to R-Truth and kind of getting it all off his chest. And then he walked off, and R-Truth was just kind of standing there. So R-Truth is still around. Grimsley. Omos always kills it in the ring. Great showing. Yeah, he kills it. He kills it. Omos kills it. He's killed a few matches before. I agree. Omos has killed a few matches. Hopefully he won't kill Braun Strowman at the pay-per-view. Devin from NJ2000. If AEW did not exist, would CM Punk have returned to wrestling by now, but in WWE? Yes. It's funny to me how people conveniently forget that there were discussions between both sides long before Punk went to AEW. So the idea that they wouldn't even talk to each other, that Punk wouldn't be open to the idea, he talked to them once before. He initiated a dialogue with them once before, and his whole thing was, I told them, I don't want you to play games, and he said they played games, so it fell apart. But yes, I think by now, he is smart enough to understand that if he wants to get paid, if there was no AEW, the only place where he would get paid would be WWE. People have said, never in the past about certain wrestlers. Bret Hart. Even Bret Hart, for all the animus that he had towards Vince McMahon for what he did to him in Montreal 25 years ago in just a few weeks, to his brother dying on fucking television, and then he has a career-ending concussion, has to retire, he has a stroke, right? He has no reason to ever work with Vince McMahon again or go back on television. Even Bret Hart came back. If Bret Hart could come back under those circumstances, then anybody can come back, including CM Punk. So always remember. Chris Miner with the $9.99. Dream match. If everyone was alive and in the prime of their careers, who would win the Anoa'i family battle royal to be the actual head of the table? Well, would you include The Rock in that? You're saying Anoa'i. If it's Anoa'i, we're keeping it only to like Yoko and probably Umaga, and certain other people are being left out. So if you're talking the entire Samoan kind of family tree, how do you go against The Rock? Right? Come on, he's The Rock. I was going to say Haku, but Haku's not Samoan. Haku is Tongan. Where the Tongan death grip comes from. Corey Mitchell, $10 super chat. Solomonster, what do you think of the CM Punk to WWE rumors? I think that you will have to tune into the podcast on Sunday. I will talk about it at length. Corey, thank you. The Phenom with the $7 super chat. Hey Solo, how are you? I'm okay. Do you think MJF could have been the reverse Hogan effect had he been heel 10 to 13 years and then turned face? Keep up the great work. The reverse Hogan. So he's saying Hogan was a babyface for, a decade or more and then turned heel. Well, Hogan was a heel first. When Hogan first debuted and actually first showed up in WWF the first time, he was a heel. He was managed by Fred Blassie. Andre was the babyface and they feuded. Then he left. He went to the AWA. And if you want to know more about the whole Hogan AWA thing, you'll want to tune into the podcast on Sunday, because the Tales from the Territories episode this week covered the AWA. And Greg Gagne said something about Hulk Hogan when he was talking about Hogan walking out on his father. That was so fucking hilarious to me. So we'll talk about Hogan and the AWA and all that. Could he have been the reverse Hogan effect? 10 to 13 years is a long time. That's a long time. So no, I don't know. I'm not really sure what you're asking, but he's been a heel. He will ultimately go on to be, I think, a great babyface. So if that makes him the reverse Hogan, in a way, I guess, kind of, yeah, it's kind of a reverse Hogan. But people do sometimes forget that Hogan was actually a heel when he first showed up. Emiliana with the $10 super chat. Thank you, Emiliana. Forgot to catch the stream on Tuesday because I was so worried about Hangman, so here I am making up for it. Hope everybody has had a good week otherwise. Thankfully, Hangman, just to follow up on the end of our stream on Wednesday, he suffered a concussion, which is bad, but could have been a lot worse. And he otherwise feels fine. but he's in concussion protocol, so there's no telling when he'll be cleared to wrestle again. But it looked bad. He didn't get a broken neck or a neck injury or anything like that. So that's the good news. The bad news is that he's got a concussion and, he didn't get to finish out the match. So we'll see if Tony Khan wants to book a rematch. Storyline-wise, he certainly has an excuse, right? It was an injury stoppage. He didn't actually lose to I was going to say CM Punk, to Jon Moxley. Kevin Dunn's Beaver. McDonald's Halloween buckets are back. I heard some of these adult Happy Meal toys that they're and I still don't know what an adult Happy Meal toy is that they're putting in these boxes, but whatever they are, apparently people are putting them on eBay and they're selling them for like hundreds of dollars. So I can't imagine what these adult Happy Meal items are that people are actually putting them on eBay and selling them for that much money. Jay Baker with the $4.99. If he wasn't released, do you think Bray would still be using the Funhouse and Fiend gimmick, or would have changed his gimmick by this time? I think he still would be using the Fiend. I think the whole Fiend story with Alexa and everything, I think it would have evolved into something a little bit different, but I think we'd still have the Fiend and the Funhouse, and especially if it was selling. If the merch was still selling, then yeah, I think he'd still be doing some variation of it. Brumakian Productions, the Bray story is better than Halloween Ends. And the time that the birds shat on your car. Well, it's definitely, you're setting a very low bar, but yes, it is definitely better than that. And it is better than Halloween Ends. Josiah Ball, Ray may not fight Walter because he looks too much like Dom and he will never fight his Miho. Yeah, I forgot about that joke. There were a lot of people who said that Walter looked a lot like Dominic. I don't see it, but that was kind of the running joke for a while. That would actually be fucking hilarious if he said, look, I told you I will not fight my son. I will not fight my Miho. Shikamaru 1218. Logan Paul is Saitama, the One Punch Man. He's got more than just a punch. He did good in the match with the Miz at SummerSlam. He did good for himself. Love Lie. Logan Paul against Bret Hart. Buzzer or bell? Oh, I'm giving that the bell. Did you see what Logan Paul did with the Miz at SummerSlam? Imagine him in the ring with someone like Bret Hart in Bret's prime. Be a great fucking match. You thought that Bret made Tom McGee look like $1 million. He made Tom McGee look like the next Hulk Hogan. What do you think he could do in the ring with Logan Paul? My dad left me with the $1.99 super chat. I think Leo will join Hit Row. It fits perfectly. Oh yeah, great. That'll be great. Yeah. I can't wait for Leo Rush to come back to WWE and then leave 3 months later. That'll be great. Von Tell with the $2. Taking a wild swing. Leo Rush will be Hit Row's prick. Or pick. Hit. Slip of the tongue. He will be Hit Row's pick. So that's two. That's two people who think it will be Leo Rush. Chris O'Neill with the $5 super chat. Let us not forget the national treasure of Southpaw Wrestling. That's right, Southpaw Regional Wrestling. That might be one of the good things to revive now that they have Anderson and Gallows back under contract. Southpaw Regional Wrestling. EJ Slemp, $4.99 super chat. Do you think that we will see Jericho wrestle either of the American Wolves for the Ring of Honor World Championship? I think there's a very good chance, yeah. I mean, if he's on a mission to beat as many of the former ROH champions as he possibly can, then I would think that, yeah, he'd probably be in there with at least one of them. Hairu Says, I watch Carmelo Hayes and Cameron Grimes matches on Main Event. What do you think is the ceiling for them? I'm a big Melo fan. The sky's the limit for him. I think the sky's the limit on both of them. I think their size is going to work against them in the eyes of some. But there have been guys on the roster who have been of average height, who, you know, can back it up in the ring, who have gone on to have great success. And I think that I have always said, I said this before, that I think Cameron Grimes, under the right circumstances, could be that kind of organic babyface that people get behind. And I keep using Daniel Bryan as an example. I don't mean that they'll necessarily get over at that same, like, unbelievable level. But he was just such a great fucking babyface during that period. And they kind of screwed him over in the booking and in the storylines, and the fans just got behind him in a big way, right? They rallied behind this guy because they wanted to see him win. They wanted to see him in the main event. I think Cameron Grimes could be that kind of babyface one. Carmelo Hayes, the sky is the limit. Carmelo Hayes can be as great as they allow him to be. He's got charisma. He's got that, call it arrogance, call it confidence, the way he carries himself. He carries himself like a star. And in the ring, he can back it up. Because I've seen him do it time and time again in NXT. So I think Carmelo Hayes is a future world champion. I can't sit here and tell you that Cameron Grimes is a future world champion, but I can tell you that Carmelo Hayes is a future world champion in that company. Hey Rizzo, what's going on, brother? Thank you for the $10 super chat drop. Good evening. Hope all is well. I have an idea for a topic at the end of the podcast. A top 5 or 10 biggest what-ifs in wrestling history. Obviously, one would be, what if WCW won the war? If WCW won the war, then I don't think WCW would be around anymore. And I think that wrestling would be in pretty bad shape. That's what I think. Even if they had won the war, I don't think it was sustainable. EJ Slemp, $4.99. Why, of all the WCW pay-per-views, they brought back the Great American Bash? And on top of that, every WWE Great American Bash show sucked. Well, I was at the last one that they ever did. The last pay-per-view that had the full, not the bash, like Great American Bash. It was in 2008 at the Nassau Coliseum. Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho had a pretty good match on that show, as I recall. I don't remember much about the rest of it, so maybe it was a bad show. I don't really remember too much of it, but it's got the word American in it, you know, and Vince and WWE have always been about Americana. So they love it, right? They love anything like that. They love. So I'm not surprised. And it's not a bad name. You know, the names that WCW used for their pay-per-views that I never liked. I liked most of their names, to be honest with you. You know, like, even Fall Brawl is not terrible. Super Brawl was pretty good. Starrcade, Halloween Havoc, Bash at the Beach, I thought was a pretty cool name. The whole Hog Wild, Road Wild thing was fucking dumb. That was very stupid. World War III, I didn't like. Sold Out, I thought was a stupid name. Spring Stampede was pretty good. What am I missing? I think those are the main ones. They had some pretty good names. G Money, what's going on? $1.99. Choose 2 AEW talents that you think would thrive in NXT. So why NXT though? Why not the main roster? 2 AEW talents who I think would thrive in NXT. I think that Dante Martin would do well in NXT. God, you know, I think of like Starks and Hobbs, but they shouldn't be in NXT. They should be on the main roster. Dante Martin. I'm trying to think of the younger talents that they have on that roster. You know, all the young pillars in that company would do fine on Raw or SmackDown. I wouldn't even bother with NXT. You know, Jungle Boy and Sammy and people like that. I don't know. You know, Dante is one that. Well, I'll tell you what. On the female side, Jade Cargill. She could probably use some time down there. I think she would do well. She would be best served, frankly, to put some time in down in NXT, and then eventually she'll be called up to the main roster and she'll be a major star. So, We got Cameron Spencer. Does a Wesley versus Ricochet match interest you? Yeah, I think it would be pretty badass, actually. Chris, with the $4.99 with rumors of The Rock wrestling Roman at Mania. What are those rumors? I've not heard that rumor before. Is The Rock going to wrestle Roman Reigns at WrestleMania? This is the first I'm hearing of this. I think you're the first person to mention that to me. And the new focus on secondary titles, why is it Goldberg's fault? Well, it's always Goldberg's fault. It's always Goldberg's fault. When in doubt, just blame Goldberg. It's very simple. People used to blame Canada, right? That was the whole South Park thing, just blame Canada. No. Canada never did nothing wrong. You just blame Bill Goldberg. Aussie of Steel, how's it going? Just sending the obligatory super chat. Thank you, Aussie. Rizzo with the $5 super chat. Solo is a great salesman, not telling anyone his thoughts and getting people to listen to the podcast. You should have been a car salesman. I have a podcast that drops on Sundays, and yes, if you want to hear my thoughts on the top stories of the week, I'm not going to give it away. I give you little nuggets and little morsels, but you got to wait to the podcast. I'm not stupid. What do you think? I started this show a year ago? I've been doing this 15 years. I know what I'm doing. Joseph Brooks, buy or sell on these dream matches that we saw that should have been done more than just once. Eddie against Brock, or Eddie against Rock, and Brock against Samoa Joe. Brock against Samoa Joe. Michael Cuomo, outside of the Royal Rumble, were Owen and Bulldog the first tag team champions to face each other one-on-one. You mean while they were tag team champions? No, there have been plenty of instances of that. Shawn Michaels and Steve Austin at the King of the Ring in 1997. That's just one off the top of my head. Tripod says, was the phone number in the QR code 1-900-909-9900? No. No, it was not. Although I remember that number well. Emiliana, $10 super chat. Yes, I've actually wanted that Hangman Moxley match. And before Dynamite premiered in 2019, so fingers crossed a rematch happens sometime down the line. I think it will. I think at some point they'll want to do the match and give the people a proper finish. Deathronic 78. Besides Jim Ross talking about Kiera's weave, Layla Gray looks like great value Sasha Banks. Yeah, it's one of the things I forgot about. In not watching as much of Rampage, I've been missing the Jim Ross commentary. Is that what he's talking about? Is he talking about people's weaves now on that show? Oh, JR. Drew McIncock. I'm a huge Jericho Appreciation Society fan after seeing Jericho against Bandito. That's the match that got Bandito a contract, if he in fact signs a contract with AEW. Slim Yoshi. I heard those words from the phone number and they sounded familiar. Realized they're from the... Thank you, Slim Yoshi. Thomas, with the $2, I think it's Angelo Dawkins as the mystery partner. I think you may be onto something. Again, my first thought was Carmelo Hayes. I would rather Carmelo Hayes not be attached to Hit Row. That would also imply that he's being called up as a babyface, and I'm not sure I would do that either. So, I would rather it be Angelo Dawkins than Carmelo Hayes. Funky Weapon, what is your current favorite finishing move? Current finishing move? Let's see. My current favorite finishing move in wrestling, I think it's still, I got to give you the same answer I probably would have given even a few years ago. It's got to be the Black Arrow. I think it's Pac. I think it's the Black Arrow. It's a beautiful move. And I love how they protect it. When he hits it, he always wins with it. That's the way it should be. Tripod says, you forgot about Super Brawl Saturday. Famous promo. The famous Lex Luger promo. Super Brawl Saturday. Vontel says, highest ceiling. Rank them. Montez, Swerve, Mello, and Ricky. I am going to say, oh boy. I'm going to go, honestly, I'm going to go Montez. I'm going to go Montez, Mello, Swerve, and then Ricky. That's the order I would do it. Bernard, what wrestling period do you like the most? Attitude Era, Hulk Hogan, Hulkamania, or the current wrestling today? Attitude Era, just because, and not even for all the raunchy stuff, just because that period was so much fun to be a fan. You had the two warring companies, and you never knew what you were going to see. When you tuned in, it was must-see TV, who was going to jump. And again, the handcuffs were off, and I was of that age where I loved that shit. You know, I mean, I fit right into that target demographic at that time, so, you know, a lot of my friends who were no longer into wrestling were into it. Even people who were barely, like, casual fans were into it. So that, to me, is still the most fun period of wrestling. But I will always have a place in my heart for the golden era, with the Hogans and the Savages, and $1 Million Man's, Ultimate Warrior, Jake the Snake, all those people. EJ Slam, the big one you forgot was Slamboree. Ah, yes, Slamboree. Slamboree's okay. Slamboree's not in my top 5, but Slamboree is not a bad name. I also forgot Uncensored, which Uncensored is one of their weaker names. I could get rid of Uncensored. Hey, Paydog, thank you for the $9.99 from Paydog. I think Paydog got paid today. Thank you, Paydog. Love Lie. Bigger disappointment, Halloween Ends or Hell in a Cell 2019? Honestly, Hell in a Cell 2019. Louis, Bray was terrifying tonight. You'll love to see it. Fire Panda. I didn't know Fire Panda was with us. Fire Panda says, I'm back. While I was gone, I was reading ancient panda texts. One text said that you once showed your strength to a group of pandas by crushing 15 watermelons with your thighs. I have no idea what you're talking about, but apparently the whiskey is very potent tonight. Drink up. Louis, Jay versus Sonny. Winner gets their record expunged. Who you got? What? Jay against Sonny? I have no idea who you're talking about. Are you talking about like Tammy Sitch? Because that's not how Sonny is spelled. Any situation where Tammy Sitch wins is a loss. I'm voting for the other option. Tammy Sitch does not deserve to win. Tammy Sitch belongs behind bars for the rest of her life. Michael Cuomo, but Owen and Bulldog faced each other before Shawn and Austin did. And yes, I am. So, okay, you're saying who was the first to do it. I still find it hard to believe that there wasn't another tag team before Owen and Bulldog. I mean, unless you're talking only WWE, but I'm sure it must have happened. I'm sure it must have happened, but I don't know off the top of my head. I couldn't tell you who that team would be, but I'm almost positive that it's happened before. And Tripod. Was Sammy's best corpsing moment when he made Becky Lynch corpse at the Mixed Match Challenge about the Philadelphia Bakery? It was about the birthday cake, right? Yeah. That is still the best corpsing moment with Sami Zayn. That was actually in a backstage segment. And Becky looked like she was crying. She was trying so hard not to laugh, and she had to turn away from the camera. And she was great because she actually turned it into a situation where she made it look like she was crying, but she was laughing. Sammy, I'm telling you, man, Sammy just has a way of making people crack. He's been doing that for a long time. Sammy's great. Cameron Spencer with the $4.99. I'm a huge Sanity fan. WWE has a lot of stables. Bringing back Sanity could help Nikki Cross drop that stupid gimmick. Are you down for that? No, I am not. I am not. I didn't like Sanity when they were in NXT. They didn't do anything for me. It was like the Forgotten Sons on the main roster. Or in NXT for that matter. I never cared for Sanity. I thought they got a raw deal on the main roster. I think they definitely got fucked over when they got called up. But I was never a big Sanity fan. I like what Nikki Cross was doing at that time, but Eric Young, I could never give a shit about that. I could never give a shit about anything Eric Young was doing in WWE. So, no, I have no interest in seeing Sanity. You could definitely repackage Nikki Cross and be doing something there. Get her out of that stupid superhero outfit. But do I have an interest in seeing Sanity brought back? No. No, I don't. Slim Yoshi, with Punk's contract being bought out, I'm disappointed that we did not get to see him wrestle Bryan Danielson again. Was looking forward to that the most. Well, he was too. He wanted to work with Bryan in the worst way. And doesn't look like that's going to happen. And you know what? He's got nobody to blame for that but himself. It's not anybody else's fault. This guy had the keys to the castle. And he squandered it away. That's his fault. Skywalker with the $4.99. Omos gets sent to New Japan and gets Sonny Ono to manage him and Shawn Michaels to train him in Japan. I smell money. What are your thoughts? Omos tagged with AJ Styles for over a year. It's not going to make a difference. It's not going to make a difference. You could have sent him over to Japan to train with Antonio Inoki when he was in his youth. I don't think it would have made a difference. Dev to Dust with the $5 super chat. Thank you, Dev. Buy, sell, or rent Van Wyck Expressway, Long Island Expressway, and Brooklyn Queens Expressway. The 3 stages of hell. But the Van Wyck will always win. Nobody can beat the Van Wyck. Nobody can beat the Van Wyck. Am I buying, selling, or renting on like the worst or the least of 3 evils here? Nothing is as bad as the Van Wyck. Nothing that I've experienced is as bad as the Van Wyck. I feel like they've been doing construction on that stretch of road for 30 years. When Elaine made that joke on Seinfeld, that was one of the early Seinfeld seasons from like the early 90s. And even then she was joking about the Van Wyck. It has not gotten any better. If anything, it's gotten worse. Fuck the Van Wyck. Chris, how about in November, be the booker, you do 5 against 5 and see who the teams are? We could, I'm not going to do that every week, but I think we could definitely do some Survivor Series themed ones. If you guys remind me when we get into November, we could do some traditional, I don't know, about 5-on-5, maybe 4-on-4 Survivor Series matches. You know, one for the men, one for the women. We could probably do that. Marquand, 1976. Who did better promos, Jake Roberts or Arn Anderson in their prime? 2 very good promo guys, but I got to go with Jake. I think it's just a matter of personal preference. I always like how Jake, you had to kind of lean in to listen to what he had to say. He didn't scream. He didn't shout. He never got animated. You know, he would look dead in the camera. He would look right in your eye, and he would creep you the fuck out when he was a heel. Even when he was a babyface, though. You know, he did that whole in WrestleMania 6. He had that muck, the muck of avarice promo. Like, he's just like on another level. You know, there was just something about the psychology of it that he got, and he could have contributed so much good had he not just been consumed by all of the fucking demons and bullshit that he got caught up in. He could have contributed, I think, so much more to the wrestling business and the people who came in after him. He could have been such a huge whether as a trainer or just even creatively, I know he wanted to write and be on the creative team. I think that's why he left in 92. He claimed, I think, that Vince promised him either a role on the creative team or that he would be the new Pat Patterson when Pat went away because of the Ring Boy stuff and allegations and everything. And I think Vince went back on his word, and so he left and he went to WCW. But he had the mind for it, But I would go Jake. Just my personal preference. We got Dev to Dust. Are you an Homo sapien or a Strowman maniac? I'm neither. I'm my own species. I don't cohabitate with other species. We got Ancient Scholar, Queen Fire Panda. One more ancient text. It says that Solomonster once wrestled 5 large pandas and won in 10 minutes. That is incorrect. I won in 7 minutes. So you are spreading misinformation here on this channel. Tripod. Southbound on the Garden State Parkway in summertime is the worst. Benny's. I thought they said bunnies. I thought they said bunnies everywhere. Benny's everywhere. I gotta tell you something. I don't know if it's just like this in the area where I live or not, but I have seen for months now. I must be doing something wrong because everywhere I park, I am parking by a BMW. It doesn't matter if it's in front of me, if it's behind me, if I'm in a parking lot and it's on either side of me, there's the emblem. Everyone's driving around with fucking BMWs. Did BMW, did they drop their prices, or is everybody just rolling in the fucking dough here, where everybody is driving a fucking BMW around? Everywhere I go, it's all I see are BMWs. Then I look at my car, I'm like, what did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? Emiliana forgot to say congrats on retaining your All-Atlantic title tonight. Also, you and Mark Henry have great chemistry. Well, thank you. I worked hard for that championship. All Elite Adam, thanks for everything you do. Makes trucking easier. Well, my father used to be a truck driver, so I know how dull it can be on the road. I remember first time he took me out on a road trip for a week. And it was an experience. It was an experience. It's a very lonely existence. I guess depending on some truck drivers, it's like a day job. They go home at the end of the night. They eat dinner with their family. A lot of truck drivers it's not how it works, right? I mean, I remember he could be on the road for a week or two, and not just East Coast. He can go as far west as Tennessee and some of these other states. And especially in the winter, it's very dangerous. It's very treacherous. You could be on the road in the dark, in the middle of nowhere, not know where you're going. I mean, these are the days where there's no GPS. You had to have that fucking map, on the seat next to you. I couldn't read a map to save my life. I don't know how he ever did it while he was driving a truck. So I gained very big appreciation for people who drive trucks for a living. So I'm very happy that the show can keep you company and keep you occupied. We have Skywalker with the $4.99. Undertaker said that he will always answer the call for a match from Vince McMahon. If Triple H calls Undertaker, how should Triple H book him? Triple H is not going to call The Undertaker. Vince McMahon would absolutely call The Undertaker. Triple H, I don't believe, will call The Undertaker. I think he feels the way that a lot of us feel, which is Mark deserves to enjoy his retirement. We don't need to lean on him. There's nothing to be gained by leaning on The Undertaker at this point. It's time to move on. It's time to move on. It's time to focus on your current roster. It's time to focus on the future. That is where their focus should be. Dev to Dust, buy or sell Belt Parkway or Grand Central Parkway. Well, the Belt Parkway is, that's my parkway there. That's my highway. I have no use for the Grand Central. I have no use for the Jackie Robinson. I'll tell you, my Waze on my phone must be a huge baseball fan. Because all it ever wants me to do is get on the Jackie Robinson. I say, I don't want the Jackie Robinson. Take me to the Belt Parkway. We're going to take you to the Jackie Robinson. Aussie of Steel, all this talk about New York expressways makes me feel a bit better about traffic in Sydney. Thanks. Oh, I'm sure the traffic in Sydney is great compared to the traffic here in New York. You're a lucky guy. Give me... Thank you. Hey, give me. Thank you for the super chat. Michael Cuomo. I have my own parking space, and it's next to a BMW. I'm telling you, man, they're all over the place. They're all over the place. And finally here, Dev to Dust. Diesel and Shawn Michaels against the 1-2-3 Kid and Scott Hall. WWF Action Zone is underrated. I don't think it's underrated at all. I think that's on a lot of people's lists. That's a tremendous match. Long match, too. But the Click had their working shoes on that night against each other, that's for sure. Tripod with the $5 super chat. Hey, Tripod, thank you for all the love tonight, man. It means a lot. If Omos and Braun is half as good as Big Show versus Kane, we are in for a real treat. Tripod, I take back everything I just said. You let me down, brother. You let me down. All right, let's take one last look at the poll here before we get out of here. SmackDown tonight, there it is. So it is written, so it shall be told. 66.3% thumbs up. Again, solid show tonight. Not very exciting, but I thought it was a solid show. There was enough on there to like, and I liked it better than I did Raw on Monday night. So that's certainly something to be happy about. Can't complain about that. Again, if you missed it, and if you are interested, if you are so inclined, Halloween Ends review is up on the channel right now. It's short, it's sweet. I think I pretty much make myself very clear as far as what I thought of the movie. It's on Peacock right now. I would not advise you to pay money to go to the theater to see it. That's my recommendation. You can watch it for free on Peacock. And you can make your own decision about whether or not you like it or not. I'm glad I didn't spend the money, frankly, to go to the movie theater and drive all the way over there and watch it there when I could watch it from home. Is it Timane or Timan? Hey, Timan, what's going on? I did predictions earlier for Halloween Havoc, so you can go back and rewind, and all the predictions are there for the NXT show. We did that as soon as the SmackDown review was over. All Elite Adam, what's your pick for your favorite and worst pay-per-view of all time? Favorite pay-per-view of all time probably is the King of the Ring, 1993. And the worst pay-per-view of all time has to be Heroes of Wrestling. It was a pile of garbage. Garbage. Dev to Dust, Omos against Giant Gonzalez is an instant classic. For all the wrong reasons. Instant classic for all the wrong reasons. All right, guys. Again, Halloween Havoc tomorrow night. I will not be live, but it will be part of episode 779 on Sunday. We're going to do a Tales from the Territories review on the AWA, Halloween Havoc review. We'll talk about CM Punk and all the news about that. We'll talk about some of these WWE pay-per-view changes. And a very interesting note about the 30th anniversary of Raw, possibly coming back home in January. Believe it or not, it's going to be 30 years in January since the very first episode of Monday Night Raw. So we have all that to cover and much more. But Tripod is not done yet. Tripod says, serious question, when does the honeymoon phase with Triple H in charge of creative end? It ends when we get bad television. And so far, Triple H has done a pretty good job. Some weeks are not as interesting to me as others. I have yet to see an egregiously bad show. I have not yet seen an offensively bad Triple H show. It probably will happen at some point, Not every show can be a home run. My gripe is that we had so many offensively bad, boring shows for so many years. And I think so far Triple H has demonstrated in just a few months that, he's not somebody I think who wants to put that kind of product out. I think he's a proud man. And I think he wants to put out the best product that he possibly can. I think he is going to be more fan-friendly than Vince McMahon was. I think he is going to be at least a little bit more in tune with what the fans want than Vince McMahon was. There's a reason why people said, hey, this guy's out of touch. He knew how to make money. I give Vince all the credit in the world. He built this huge company. It was his idea to start the network. Back in 2014, they launched the WWE Network and people laughed at him. They cannibalized their own pay-per-view business and they turned around a few years ago and they sold the network to Peacock for $1 billion. He's a smart businessman. But as the head of creative, he was out to fucking lunch. And it was time to get some new blood in there. When the honeymoon phase ends, people will know when the honeymoon is over when they watch the show and go, man, this show fucking sucks. And at least for me, that has yet to happen. But it's only been 3 months. Got to give it time. I said this when Triple H took over. Even though a lot of weeks I like what I'm seeing, you got to wait 6 months, 9 months, a year from now. Where are we in a year? That will be the real test. Triple H should be running this thing for the next 20 plus years. We got to give it about 6 to 12 months and then see where we are. Are we right back where we were before, or is WWE in a better spot than it was when Vince gave it up? The honeymoon period will last as long as people think they are getting good television. It's as simple as that. There is no deadline. There is no date. That is how long the honeymoon will last. Turtlehead, what are your thoughts on global warming? Not touching that. Dev to Dust, what is your least in your house? Are you saying least favorite in your house pay-per-view? I don't know. There were so many of them. I don't remember them all. Dev to Dust, you reached 500 likes. You are welcome. Well, first, Dev, thank you for the super chats. And we did indeed. We did hit the goal for tonight. So you guys pulled it out of your ass here at the very last minute. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. We had well over 1,000 before, and it's still like pulling teeth just to get to the goal. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. All Elite Adam, when is the next House of Glory show that I can purchase? Well, you are in luck. The next House of Glory show is exactly 1 week from today. And when I say today, I mean Saturday, because it is after midnight now. Next Saturday is House of Glory Exodus. And you got to take a look at the card that we have. We have Aussie Open challenging the Briscoes for the House of Glory Tag Team Championship. We got Shingo Takagi coming in. He's going to be taking on Low Key. We got a lot of good shit on that show. So check out House of Glory social media. It'll list all the different matches. It should be on Fight. I'm expecting it to be on Fight TV. I don't know if it's up on the calendar yet on the schedule. If you go to fight.tv, if you go to Saturday the 29th, if it's not listed there yet, it should be later in the week, and you can purchase it on there. Usually it's $20. But it's going to be a hell of a show. Can't wait to see it. And I know you guys can't wait for Be the Booker. So let's get to it.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to Be the Booker.
It is time to Be the Booker. I know this is a favorite for many of you. Hey, Turtlehead, thank you for the $1.99. Says, we made it. Thank you, Turtlehead. Let's kick things off here. Let's get things going. Let's do it. Let's go. We begin with the men, and we begin with Jushin Thunder Liger in his one and only WWE appearance in that image right there. That was for his NXT TakeOver match with Tyler Breeze. I'm a big Jushin Thunder Liger guy. Got a Jushin Thunder Liger commemorative figure over here, off to the side here. Can't see it, but it's right over here. Well, you can't go wrong with Liger, I'll say that much. Let's see who he's going to get in the ring with. Jushin Thunder Liger and Hollywood Hulk Hogan. That's a big match right there. Hogan and Liger. Now, you see, here's the thing. If it's Japan, Hogan would have his working boots on. So if that's in the Tokyo Dome, Hogan and Liger would be a fucking great match. I'm not aware of them ever working together before, but that would be great. I like it. Hogan and Liger in Japan. Let's do it. Hogan was like a completely different person in Japan. So on the ladies' side, we begin with Ivory. Remember Ivory from her Glow days, and then eventually she had her run in WWE. Ivory was a pretty good wrestler. Let's see who Ivory is going to be stepping into the ring with on this evening. It will be Ivory going one-on-one with Sherry Martel. I'm giving this multiple bells. We got bells going off here. Sherry and Ivory. Back in their prime, back in their day. Very good women's match. That would have been a very good match. Got to give that the bell. All right, let's see if we can do it. Let's see if we can go 3 for 3. I'm feeling good tonight. Let's see if we can go 3 for 3. We have to. We have to. We must. We begin with the American males. Marcus Alexander Bagwell and Scotty Riggs. Remember their theme song? I know it's a little confusing if you can't memorize the lyrics to their theme song. It's a complicated song, I know. But it is a very famous theme song. It'll be the American male stepping into the ring with the Lucha Bros, Penta and Rey Fenix. I'm giving that the bell. I think a young American males against the Lucha Bros would actually be a very good tag team match. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you go 3 for 3 in Be the Booker, which I didn't even think we were going to do tonight. Look at that. Not only did we do it, we went 3 for 3. Clean sweep. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. Love Lie says next year's draft is where the fun truly begins. This is still a roster that belongs to Vince McMahon. I know Triple H has called up people, brought back people, but this is still Vince's roster. Triple H hasn't even put his own roster together yet. So again, you can't even really fully judge yet because we haven't even gotten to the draft where Triple H can move things around and put the pieces in place that he wants to work with. Probably won't get a draft until after WrestleMania, which is exactly when a draft should happen, not a month before Survivor Series. And Thomas, I live for Be the Booker. Glad we made it. I am too. That was a very good addition to Be the Booker tonight. All right, again, thank you very much. You guys are awesome. You guys have come out tonight. I appreciate that, hanging out with me here on a Friday night. Back with you live on Monday night after Monday Night Raw. But before we get there, it'll be episode 779 of the podcast on Sunday. You guys know where to find it on all the usual podcast platforms. I hope you will check that out and support. Please hit the subscribe button on your way out. Please like this video if you have not already done so. It does really help the videos out when you do. It is the easiest way to support. And thank you for all of the super chat love. It does mean a lot to me because we spend a lot of time and a lot of manpower and man hours here working on the show and on the channel, and it means a lot to me. So be well, stay safe, have yourselves a great weekend. I will see you for 779 on Sunday and back here live for Monday Night Raw next Monday. We'll do it all over again. Brand new week. Until then, take care.